and super excited to really get this feature spotlight and AMA ongoing. Our goal is to provide more visibility into what Clearscope is working on, and you can be prepared to really get these every month moving forward. I think we're shooting for the first Tuesday of every month. And again, the idea is to really just showcase what we've been working on, some of the ideas that we have in the pipeline, get your feedback on all of those, and then give you a chance to ask me or us any kind of questions that you have, whether they be Clearscope specific or just any thoughts or questions you have around your own SEO initiatives or what's going on with SEO. So with that in mind, let's jump right in and showcase some of the improvements that we've been making to content inventory, including things like content decay, position tracking, and then we'll jump into ideas of a lot of different things that we've been mulling over and, trying to prioritize in terms of what your appetite looks like. So first up, we'll have the improvements to content inventory, which includes a Google Search Console auto setup and faster grading when initially adding your pages. Then we've upgraded how position tracking works with more historical context of how your rankings have performed over time. Then content decay, we've added some thresholds to make sure that the pages that we're surfacing from your Google Search Console are indeed pages that look high decay in terms of traffic loss. And then there's a whole bunch of different ideas on what's to come. And I can't wait to dive into those and get your feedback on that. So, oops, I think this then means that I'm going to Clearscope's content inventory. So first up, content inventory, if you have not had a chance to check it out, is Clearscope's newest and most relevant and important feature that we've released. Content inventory gives you a recurring way to analyze your content health and topical relevancy over time. You can imagine that we are entering unprecedented levels of content generation because of what's been happening with AI and content, and the war, if you will, in the search engine results pages for content being created is going to be more aggressive and more competitive than it's ever been. In this new world of AI-assisted content generation, we feel that it's extremely important to make sure that your content is staying topically relevant after you publish it. You've probably heard me say, SEO content is not set it and forget it. And the best and brightest organizations, your NerdWallets, your Keto Diet, your Healthlines, they understand this, right? They're going back and retouching their content, as frequently as every week, and as less frequently as every year. And the idea is that, again, topics will change over time. When you score well in Clearscope, that means that we assign you a grade of A+ or A++ if you like to achieve extra credit. What that means is that your content is doing a great job covering the subject matter at the time that you analyzed the piece of content using Clearscope. However, you'll notice that certain content pieces might start to degrade over time. And that alludes to the idea that content, again, is likely to need to be refreshed and updated as topics change over time. So Clearscope's content inventory, how you get up and running, again, if you haven't set one up, is that you would go to your content inventory, you'd create a project, and here you would be asked to connect your Google Search Console. Connecting the property will then go ahead and make sure that we can pull in the relevant metrics and data that's associated with your domain that you want us to derive insights on. One important thing that I want to call out here is that Clearscope uses your Google Search Console data to exclusively give you insights into your content. We are not in the business of selling data, nor are we in the business of competitive analysis. So you can rest assured that if you connect your Google Search Console, that the data is only being used for your own benefit and will stay private to your own Clearscope organization. Setting it up from here, connecting the property, then gives you a way to add pages to be graded. Again, this is pretty simple. You put in a blog URL over here on the left, and we'll give you a way to then grade up to 3 different queries. So keyword 1, search intent 2, query 3, however you want to call these. This is how you would then add the pages to be graded. When you add the pages in the past, it took us a little bit of time to grade the page in the sense that we wanted to pull in a variety of different metrics from Google Search Console, like your clicks, assign a search engine optimization value, which is looking at how much the content you produced is valued on its ability to rank for queries and how much those queries would cost. We would also take a look at how many inventory links are associated with that page. And all in all, that took up to 24 hours for the grading to occur. Well, we received a lot of feedback that was a really long time for things to happen, and we've been able to reduce the amount of time that it takes for a query to be graded and most of these metrics to be assigned down to 30 minutes. So now grading happens in a lot faster of manners. So that would cover the improvements that were made to content inventory as a whole. I'm just going to pause briefly here. Any thoughts, comments from y'all around content inventory, and have you been able to use the platform in this particular way? So Marissa asks, I joined a bit late. Do you need to connect Google Search Console to use this? The quick answer is no. Clearscope's content inventory can be used without Google Search Console, but in a lot of ways, that's going to be very limiting in terms of Clearscope's actual functionality. We won't be able to give you things like the amount of clicks, things like SEO value. And you can kind of see here, we'll get into it in a second, but we also will not be able to give you any insights into position tracking and content decay. So I highly recommend that you connect your Google Search Console. And if you run into any issues or have any security or privacy concerns about it, let us know. And we're happy to put together whatever documentation that you might be seeking to make your security or IT department happy. Right, so we got a question that Travis is answering. I don't have access to this on my Clearscope account. That is because this has mostly been in beta. We'll definitely get you set up on Clearscope's content inventory. If you could just send a note to support, and then we'll get that toggled on for your account. No problemo. No problem. Cool. Then let's dive into some of the improvements that we've made to the functionality in content inventory. Again, this is meant to be more of a back and forth. So if you have any questions, thoughts, or feedback, drop them in the Q&A, drop them in chat, and we will definitely get them answered. So moving on then to the improvements that we've been making, you can see here, Clearscope's content inventory comes with position tracking. Now, position tracking is derived from data that comes from your Google Search Console, and you can very quickly see the different queries and where they've been ranking in Google search. You can then sort by a variety of different criteria within the filter right over here. So clicking on average position, we can quickly see that, of course, we're doing pretty well for what is Clearscope on our blog post, what is Clearscope. We can also see right here that we're seeing some forms of competition pop up in that our piece of content is perhaps losing some rankings and traffic for different queries that we might need to go back and update. So this chart over here gives you the snapshot of how well you're performing over the last 12 months. And then we'll also give you the average monthly search volume, content grade associated with each one of the different queries that you're tracking within Clearscope's content inventory. Should you have set up your pages with tags, you can then further drill down to understand how well certain types of content or certain writers that you might be employing are performing. And we can kind of do a really quick look at this to just see, how well we are doing in relation to, content we've produced on the blog by some different writers or agencies that we've been using. So I think the most important things to check out here is when you're seeing an average position start to decay or lose positions, that would indicate that content is indeed, needing a refresh or an update. So taking a look at this, we should probably go back to our best content optimization tools, really take a look at, why we're losing some rankings, and then also potentially make this score an A+, A++. Alongside those considerations, we would probably want to take a look at, whether our content type is still the right type or experience. These are going to be things like a comparison page versus an article page versus a product page. And we'll also want to take into consideration whether our intent is still matching what we see working on Google search, right? Perhaps best content optimization tools may have taken on some AI components, and we'll want to definitely take those into consideration when we do our content updates. The other way that I really like to sort the position tracking is by average monthly searches. Clearscope gets average monthly searches straight from Google Ads. So you can then be rest assured that these are the exact numbers that Google is representing as, the search volume associated with these queries. Obviously, these stand to be more of the informational head topics that we can be, going after and doing better in. And I think generally, with relation to this, we would probably want to build out more of the long tail queries associated with this particular topic to build up more topical authority, is generally what it's being called these days. I'm going to pause here since I'm noticing, a bit of chatter. Let's see, Q&A. Let's see. Okay, so Anonymous asks, Google just had its core update last week, and our website was negatively affected. Are there any features in the product that can help us with this? Currently, I use SEMrush to see how we were affected by the algo update, and then Clearscope to optimize content for those keywords we went down on the SERP. Any thoughts on how we can use Clearscope to mitigate this damage? So yes, absolutely. If you wanted me to do it more of a live example, I'm happy to do that. But in the midst of not having an example of a keyword or a page, I think that it will be fairly difficult to really help you diagnose your problem. So again, I'll just ask, if you wanted me to do this, I think that either an example of a keyword, again, it doesn't have to be, your exact keyword, but something that you might want inspected with an example of a URL, maybe a competitor, I think that would be really helpful to do. Or else, are there any features in the product that can help with this? So I would say that, or else the example that I'll just kind of give you is that we would go to run a report right over here. And, let's say we wanted to ourselves rank better for SEO on-page optimization. So we'll take the query, we'll take the page on Clearscope. So Clearscope on page SEO, like this. And we will grade this piece of content on this URL. And then as we wait for this to load, again, I think it'd be most useful if there was an actual example of a query or a URL, but I also understand if that you're not comfortable sharing that, it's totally okay. So I'll go ahead and kind of look at the bottom one. To improve that content score within content tracking, would you still need to run a fresh Clearscope report going after the same target keyword, or is there a way to refresh existing reports? So yes, I'm going through this process as an example with our own content inventory on, let's go to on page SEO. I guess, we're an A-, so it could be better. And you can kind of see here that we are indeed losing traffic over the last 12 months. So this could be, I think, a fairly good example to use. Let's say, okay, A-, we can definitely go back, retouch, refresh this piece of content. So then the steps that I would take is, again, run an up-to-date report on this particular query, SEO on page optimization. I stuck in the URL. And let's kind of go in and take a look as to why this could be losing traffic and how this can be doing better. All right, so jumping into the editor, let's see here. So first thing to note is that the last time we touched this piece of content was about 10 months ago. So we could be due for a refresh on this piece of content. So that's something to take into consideration. The next thing that I'll do is I'll just go ahead and sort by unused to get a fairly quick assessment of the different concepts that we have not used within our piece of content. If I'm to just quickly glean from this, it seems mostly related to technical SEO, right? Things like H1 tag, HTML, structured data is kind of technical SEO, kind of not. Yeah, markup, and that kind of goes definitely with structured data. Yeah, different page elements, different long tail things. So that's kind of the first thing that I'm going to do is just broadly look for unused terms and the gaps that alludes to. And then I guess image, there's probably something around Google images or image optimization for us to really think about. There is this idea then of keyword density at play, right? Keyword density, which is then, keyword stuffing. If you do meta tags, it's definitely in technical SEO like this. Different page elements, that's not really representative of anything. SEMrush shows up probably as, a tool, auditing tool to help with. So SEMrush like this, and then yes, SEO audit, SEO auditing tool, like this SEO audit tool. Sitemap, yeah, I guess it's part of technical SEO. Descriptive file names, interesting. I know why people are recommending that, but I don't think that's too much. And then long tail keywords is more around, kind of like targeting, I suppose. Anyways, right, you can see here that I've gone through, I've knocked out all of the unused terms. While doing so, I've then increased Clearscope's content grade to an A++. All of this is to say that one of the core reasons why content optimization works and the inclusion of these different terms boosting your content grade can be best showcased by this Google blog post. If you haven't seen it, it's pretty eye-opening. Long story short, Google understands and recognizes that should a user perform a search for how to cook fish in the oven, Google is expecting terms related to the search to appear in the result. Concepts like ingredient, recipe, and baked. Google is capable and very smart of making the association that should a piece of content talk about how to cook fish in the oven and not say terms like ingredients, recipe, and baked, that Google is going to be less confident that the piece of content is likely to meet the needs of the searcher. So Google is doing this natural language processing and knowledge graph matching with all of the content that's being published. And that is why the inclusion of all of these different terms that Clearscope is recommending gives you a higher likelihood of ranking faster and ranking higher than your competition. So we've gone through, we've used all the unused terms. Something that people don't really know within the Clearscope platform is that you can kind of go ahead and add custom terms. You'll notice within custom terms that Clearscope will give you suggestions, and these term suggestions are terms that Clearscope has also identified to be relevant, just not relevant enough to include within the main term list. We want to make writing, of course, still enjoyable and fun. And you can imagine if we recommended 200, 500 terms, that your writer might take a look at that and, kind of vomit a little in their mouth. And we wouldn't want that to happen, of course. But if you wanted to go above and beyond, again, building out more of a strong, coherent knowledge graph confidence match with Google, this would be the way to go, A+++, in that we've added more terms. You can kind of see here, these are all of the custom terms that have been added. We can then sort by unused again, and then get even more recommendations on, the different terms or things that we should continue to think about adding to the piece of content. So this idea of type of content shows up, this idea of relevant keywords, long tail keywords, right? So there's probably something to do with like search intent, long tail keywords like that, content type match like this, content type, was it? Type of content. Yeah, user friendly. I guess you could throw that within technical SEO. Anyways, we'll go through, we bucket them all, and then I would go back to this piece of content that we've gotten created, and we should say, okay, well, do we have sections that kind of allude to the these different like buckets or categories that we were likely missing? And so, yeah, mastering search intent. This is probably where we would put in things like long tail keywords. We would also put in content types, or again, types of content like this, creating unique and valuable content, including keywords in the right spots, writing for your end users, your on-page, optimize, skimmable, table of contents, mobile friendly, creating internal linking strategy. This is part, yes, that's part of the testing your website speed, improving page speed for a better experience. Often we do have images. So here's where we'd probably put in, different file names. I think it was file names. And then it looks like, we probably would want to add a section here around, technical SEO considerations. I guess those then relate to, everything that we were talking about here. And you can imagine that's kind of how I would go through and update your piece of content for the maximum amount of success for your article. All right, I'll pause there. Some chat stuff. Okay, so there's actually the keyword with the URL. All right, so private equity CRM. Let's take a look at this. Thank you for sharing that, by the way. I think that makes everything way more actionable. So let's do this. Let's take the URL, like, oops, oh, there we go, like this, run the report. Okay. Cool. Well, as we're waiting for that to finish up, let's go back to the kind of the main agenda, cover content decay, and then we'll do some ideas on what's to come, and then really, dive deep into just any additional questions that you all might have. So content decay is one of the opportunities reports that Clearscope is now providing you content insights on. Content decay is fairly straightforward, fairly simple. It's the fact that content that was published is likely to lose traffic from its peak over time. Even the best and brightest SEOs cannot prevent content from decaying, especially if you have a large inventory of content. So content decay leverages data from your Google Search Console and takes a look at the last 12 months of your content performance by each page. What we'll then do an analysis of is how much traffic that page has lost from its peak performance, which you can see here, our blog post on AI content generation peaked in December, January with around 1,000 clicks. And we've been decaying or losing traffic since then to last month's total traffic of 336. You'll see here the decay in absolute terms is about 700 clicks, and in relative terms is about a loss of 67% in traffic. So clearly, this would indicate an opportunity that we have at Clearscope to go back, update, and refresh the piece of content. Of course, there is a consideration with search volume in that, okay, maybe less people are just searching for AI content generation, because I do think, the hype has crested and we are a little bit over the hump. So we might want to cross-reference that by doing a keyword discovery for AI content generation, just to inspect the seasonality that might be associated with AI generated content. Let's kind of take a look at the exact match. It's like, okay, not necessarily, right? It looks like search interest for this is staying steady, if not growing a little bit. So we can kind of rule out that AI content generation is suffering from some amount of seasonality. From here, it would look very similar to the exercise that I just went through, in that we have to diagnose why this content is likely to be losing some traffic. And chances are that, again, it's probably something to do with the topic changing very rapidly. Makes sense. AI is very trendy and fast moving. It likely then also has to do with things like search intent shifting, right? People wanting to know what the best tools are rather than what it is and how it works. So we'll want to pay attention to that. And then it could also have to do with competition, in that it's a hot subject matter. So a lot of people want to move into it and rank for it, and also content type or experience, in the sense that, maybe listicles or comparison pages are doing a lot better than articles and resources. So here, you will see all of the different pages that are losing a significant amount of traffic from peak, and will give you the ability to filter by different thresholds of decay. So starting here, right, with 90% decay, we can kind of see that some of our pages could really use some resuscitating, and we would want to diagnose those. I want to pause here in terms of Clearscope's content decay. Any feedback, questions, or thoughts around these? So question from Anonymous, can you connect more than one Google Search Console? The answer is yes, you absolutely can. So you'll see here in content inventory, you can set up multiple projects. And when setting up multiple projects, you can totally add, different properties like this. And these connect to different Google Search Consoles. Cool. Let's see here. Daria asks, does this term recommendation feature take into account users' preferences over time? And would it suggest term 2 over term 1 next time if I decide not to include term 1 in one of my content reports. Okay, I think I understand your question, but let me just repeat it back and you can correct me if I'm wrong. I think you're referring to reports like this and saying, I think I was making this mistake quite a bit, but like I was writing content types, but Clearscope was saying types of content, maybe something related to that, Daria. Is that right? So if I keep writing something like content types, are you saying, is Clearscope going to then evolve to recognize that? Okay, so the answer is no, it's not. And I'm going to give you a more nuanced reason as to why it's not. So you'll see here that with content types and types of content, or like something, anyways, yeah, we'll go with this. I don't know if this is exactly going to work how I want it to, but we leverage a variety of different cutting edge natural language processing technologies. That includes Google Cloud, IBM Watson, and now OpenAI to do the semantic analysis on the different top ranking content for the topics that you want to be writing about. You'll notice that what AI is doing then is that it is trying its best to understand, what are the different content types for SEO, and we can then say, are there a lot of types of content to consider for content marketing? Something like this. So when these natural language processing technologies analyze text that we feed it, you'll notice that, different kinds of entities will score in how their model works. It'd be like, whoops. All right. Anyways, like this. So in this particular example, I wasn't actually able to demonstrate what I wanted, but you can see here, Google is saying that yes, content types is indeed, a entity that it understands, whereas types of content is not. So the reason why Clearscope will make recommendations specifically around some of the semantics that you've seen is that we are using these different natural language processors to understand what they think are the relevant entities and then making the suggestions in that particular way. In certain cases, what that means is that a specific syntax or way of writing the term, like types of content, is recognized by machine learning and therefore being recommended as the correct way to write for the machine to understand. So that's why we make those different kinds of recommendations, and that's why you'll see, certain syntaxes feel like, tags, like, it'd say like instead of rankings on Google, we say Google ranking. Now, of course, we do our best to make sure that the pluralizations and dashes and stuff kind of all match. And I do think that those, this and like the apostrophes and things, I think that the natural language processing technologies do understand and parse out. But when it comes to say something like content types versus types of content, the reason why we're making the recommendations that we are typically due to the fact that these different NLP technologies are understanding it in a certain way. In this particular case, content types actually seems to be what Google prefers rather than types of content. But again, this is why we take another look at IBM Watson, OpenAI, and do this analysis across the 30 desktop and mobile rankings to then arrive at a confidence of what is the correct syntax to be presenting the term. Okay, so this is answered. Let's see here, chat. Cool. Okay. Well then, let's dive into the ideas on what we have to come and really trying to get your feedback, comments, votes, if you will, on where you would like to see Clearscope evolve. I'll briefly cover what each one of these mean, and then we'll just jump into AMA afterwards. So content inventory, alerts, and notifications. This one, it refers to the fact that when you are tracking pages in Clearscope's content inventory, you likely want to know when a piece of content slips in terms of your content grade, slips in terms of peak traffic or content decay, or slips in terms of your rankings going down. In that sense, we'll give you a way to get notified that a piece of content has lost, say, positions, a title tag has changed, a piece of content has degraded from an A+ to a B+, and you'll get notified so that you can proactively stay on top of changes and shifts that you're noticing within the SERPs. Idea number 2 is additional opportunities reports. So content decay is actually the first opportunity report in that it surfaces insights on ideas and proactive measures that you can be taking to address some of the problems that might be showing up within your content inventory. Ideas then that we have for additional report opportunities would be this notion of striking distance report. This refers to, generally speaking, pages that are on the second page of Google for the target query or keyword that you want to rank for. And updating or retouching those pieces of content has a much higher likelihood of having high ROI and pushing that piece of content onto the front page, where you're likely to get more clicks and impressions. So surfacing then using Google Search Console, queries that have high search volume that are on the cusp of the first page and allowing you to then identify those. Keyword cannibalization refers to the idea that a couple of pages might be competing for the same query. What you would want to know is when pages then are matching the impression volumes in different thresholds for similar or the same query, in which case you would probably want to consolidate those pages or perhaps do some redirecting or figuring out what to do. So we would then identify 2 or more pages that are competing for the same query and then give you at least the insight that they are doing that, and then you can figure out whether you want to merge those pages or redirect them to some more like master page. The last opportunity report that we've been thinking about is this idea of new impression spike queries. If you're like me and you nerd out in Google Search Console, then you've probably noticed that Google will send impression spikes to certain pages for certain queries that you have. And in my understanding, what's happening is that Google is sampling or testing your page for that particular query. In essence, Google says, okay, maybe this page could perform for this query. And so I'm going to test it for, a day. In that day, you might intermittently rank in, like on the cusp of the front page or on the front page, and that would lead to a spike of impressions. Now, oftentimes, right, if those impressions don't catch any clicks, then Google is going to send your piece of content back into the depths of the SERPs, and they're going to say, all right, well, that didn't do what I wanted it to do. Well, if we were able to surface the new impression spikes that you're seeing for certain queries, you could then get a better sense of the type of traffic from a query and topic standpoint that Google wants to give to your website, and that can then surface new content opportunities or perhaps a realignment of existing content to better match some of the search intent that Google wants to give to you. Internal linking recommendations, you'll have noticed within Clearscope's content inventory that we are giving you insights into how many pages each inventory page is linking out to and how many pages are linking into this particular page. We'll then show you the different anchor tags that each page is using and point out which pages that each link is coming from. So the next iteration on that is to then actually give you recommendations to say, hey, why isn't page A linking to page B? It's talking about similar things. You actually also include, the exact match of the query within the body of content, or, Google is giving you traffic for the queries that, this matches. So why shouldn't you rank for those? So that's what internal linking recommendations looks like. I think that, another additional dimension that we're thinking about is this idea of internal link equity. All of that is to say that I don't think that all internal links are created equal. Clearly, a link from your homepage is going to be worth way more than a link from, a long tail blog post on average. I think the reasoning as to why that exists is actually due to the search performance of the URL that's doing the linking. Typically speaking, the homepage is going to have the most weight in that it generally pulls in the bulk of a lot of traffic to a particular website. You can see here we're sorted by SEO value, but this particular page is doing really well in Google search. What this implies is that users, when they land on this page, are engaged with the piece of content. They like what they're seeing. So whatever this page is linking to, externally or internally, is going to cast a much weightier vote than a page that is not performing well in Google search. That's the hypothesis. And so we can then say, okay, let's actually have this page, do a little bit more heavy lifting in terms of link out, and we can then arrive at some semblance of like link equity weighting to say, okay, this page might get, 23 links in, but are they strong? What's the overall link equity associated with the page, taking into consideration, clicks and other weights. So that would be kind of alongside internal linking recommendations as well. Topic gap analysis is the idea that, well, you want to build more topical authority in today's day and age of SEO. If you're not familiar with topical authority relates to, it's this idea that should a website perform well for a topic, that Google is much more likely to give it traffic for related topics. A concrete example of this would be NerdWallet and credit cards. You can imagine that anytime NerdWallet publishes a piece of content around credit cards, it's going to initially seed or rank in Google search in high positions. And that is because NerdWallet has done a good job establishing topical authority that they are indeed subject matter experts on credit cards. Topic gap analysis would leverage Clearscope's keyword discovery connected to Google Search Console so that when you did a search for any given topic like content optimization, we'd provide additional columns within Clearscope's keyword discovery that says, hey, you are indeed ranking for this keyword. This is the position. This is the impressions that you're getting. You are not ranking for this keyword. You are ranking for this. You aren't ranking for this. So very quickly, you can then see your topical gaps within your inventory and get assessments on where you should be creating new content to boost your overall website's topical authority for the different queries that you want to be writing about. And that would then give you insights into new content opportunities. Alongside topic gap analysis would be this idea of topic clustering. What we can then further do, and you might have seen this within a report, is that we can then do semantic grouping on top of the topics that we're recommending from Clearscope's keyword discovery and in relation to, what you might want to be writing about. Semantic grouping uses OpenAI and AI to say, okay, well, internal links, backlinks, and external links all relate to one another. And so we can take these and we can then say, okay, this is a category that you should probably, write about at least within this piece of content. We can take the same technology and apply it to Clearscope's keyword discovery. So you can say, yes, SEO optimization software and that, those are together, video search, these are together, and then you can get these broader categories and then, a better sense of the topical areas that you should be looking to boost within your content inventory to just overall do better in search. Last couple of ideas that we have. Obviously, AI has been all the rage, and we're seeing new LLMs, new AI generation technology pop up left and right. The problem with a lot of AI content generation is that it's producing commoditized content. So I say commoditized content. I actually had a presentation that you just go to this. I gave this presentation about a month ago. Anyways, you can see the slide deck here. The problem with AI content generation, in my opinion, is that AI content generation is not adding any new entities or is unlikely to add new entities to the knowledge graph, right? The way that AI and LLMs generally work is that they're trying to predict words following words and sentences following sentences. So in this very basic example, states was 80% likely to follow United, then 9% nations, 3.4% Arab, so on and so forth. So you can imagine LLM content creation is good for short form content. It's bad for long form content or for topics where there's not that much training data. And what LLMs are trying to do, right, what a lot of ML engineers is that they want to make sure that the outputs are accurate and are high confidence. So what ends up happening is that content that's generated by AI is going to be very well established in terms of the entities. Now, Google is smart, right? This is why we saw the helpful content update destroy certain types of websites at the end of last year, like lyric websites, grammar websites, because they all said the same thing. But more importantly, they all did not add to the entity knowledge graph that Google is looking for. So robot-only content is not going to perform well. Human-directed or AI-assisted content is likely to do well. You can imagine the way that we could go about tackling this is to actually give you a way to create prompts, not complete pieces of content, but prompts that leverage the insights that Clearscope is able to give you. That way you have complete flexibility in using any LLM that you want to use. Obviously, GPT is the elephant in the room, but we're seeing, enterprises and wrap versions of GPT because they want to prevent certain security and privacy concerns. We're also seeing new LLMs pop up every day. And so giving you the ability to create a prompt, right? Something like create an article outline using these, answer these, make sure these questions are answered, make sure these are used within headings. That gives you a lot more flexibility in terms of leveraging AI with Clearscope. Content inventory, Google Data Studio connector, fairly straightforward. We'll take the insights that we have within content inventory and give you an easy way to pipe them into Google Data Studio. page level annotations and recommendations. This will then give you the ability to go ahead and add an annotation to each one of these different pages. So that way you can say, okay, right here on, September 12th, I optimized this piece of content, scoring an A+. Now let me see the impact from a traffic position standpoint on how this page is currently performing. It's also nice because universal Google Analytics is deprecated and GA4 is everyone's worst nightmares, and it doesn't come with annotations, nor can you annotate Google Search Console. So giving you a way to then place markers both on a project level and on a page-by-page level makes a ton of sense. This one is interesting, indexation and crawl statuses. So we are actually able to get insights into indexation and crawl statuses. You can see here, this is something that we've been playing around with. Do all of this fetching live. Okay, so you can see here for our blog post, how to get a knowledge panel, we can see that it's submitted and indexed. It's crawled as mobile. The Google canonical is this. The indexation is allowed. The last crawl time was yesterday at some point. So all of this actually alludes to really interesting things. More specifically, indexing is allowed. Obviously, indexing is the first step of ranking. And then also interesting is this idea of last crawl time. So you'll notice that top ranking content on Google is generally crawled every day, every week, maybe once every 2 weeks at latest. So if you have a last crawl time that's outside the bounds of 2 weeks, that would indicate that Google doesn't like your content for some reason. We would then maybe surface that. And again, we say maybe because surfacing that Google doesn't like your content, but not giving you a way to do something about it seems somewhat alarming. So anyways, these are things that we're playing around with in terms of analyzing the content and giving you alerts and improvements to Clearscope. Okay. I know there was a lot to say, and I do want to cover the query and the report thing. And I know that Travis just put a poll up, so you can vote. So while you're voting, let me go ahead and take a look at private equity CRM. So we'll dive here. Alex Fish. This was last updated 5 days ago. Seems pretty good. You have an A+. Your word counts within normal range. So let's see here, current private equity landscape, Deal Cloud, Salesforce, Dynamo, other CRMs. Okay, so the first thing that is going to just pop into my head is that maybe you haven't given this enough time. I don't know, but you might have published this actually a long time ago. And that's, the first thing is, have you waited generally like 2 to 3 months? The second thing that I'm going to point out is probably something along the lines of like content type or experience. So, if I do best private equity CRMs and I do a search for it here, what I really want to know is, how people are titling, this kind of thing. 7 best CRMs rated, how to choose 14 best to consider. This would be best, top, choosing the best, top 7 picks. Okay, so yeah, I think, from a titling perspective, I would recommend something like, how many did you evaluate? Alvia, Salesforce, Affinity, Dynamo, 4 degrees. Yeah, so something like 6. I think you'd want to put like, 6 best private equity CRMs in 2023. And then I think that you would also want to kind of jump straight to the nuts and bolts of your piece, like, why somebody is looking, in the current private equity landscape. I don't think this section really adds much to what the user is looking for. I also don't think that photo necessarily adds much either. So those are going to be definitely, content improvements. It is, not within the scope of Clearscope to really offer you insights on, content structure or user experience, but these are definitely aspects of where I think you could improve. And then the last part is that generally speaking, when it comes to these types of pages, people are going to like potentially bucket them in subcategories. So you kind of know these as, like if you're looking for best accounting software, people will say for SMBs, for complex finances, for real estate, for whatever. So I think that the nuts and bolts of this is that you probably want to retitle. You probably want to analyze more, right? Like generally 17 in this example of best, at least, is going to be better than say 6. I do think that let's see here, deal cloud. Okay, so I think these are good common complaints. Yeah, and then I'm going to say something along the lines of like structure, like content structure, right? That generally in these different like subheads, you'll want like pros, cons, cost, right? These are going to be the things that people are going to care about when they're doing the research. Is that like, what are the pros? What are the cons? You kind of see this with, let's do best hiking shoes. I don't know, like this, just to give you like an example of like how these are generally shaped, right? It'll kind of be like best overall, best budget, best ultralight, this, how much all of this, what we like, what we don't like, same thing with here, right? Best for men, best for women, what we like, what we don't like, reasons to buy, reasons to avoid. Yeah, so you're missing a lot of this like subtle structure and kind of the overall like dynamics for that. All right, let's see. I know we're running up on time, but I'm happy to go over to make sure that all the questions could be answered. So Garrett asks, we've been working with clients to improve their e-commerce category and collection pages. Okay, getting an A or better often includes a block of SEO text at the bottom or the top of the page. Google has mentioned these large blocks on e-commerce can confuse them or the search intent on the page. What are your recommendations for getting a better grade on these page? Oh, okay. Garrett has to hop. Okay. Yes. So for those of you in e-commerce, you've probably seen it. Let me see if I can like think of a page that has this copy block off the top of my head. Let's just do vacuum cleaners maybe, and take a look at Walmart or Home Depot. Let's see here, Walmart. All right. So this refers to the idea that people will oftentimes put this type of stuff, right? This is just a Q&A. I think Walmart will occasionally have them. They're generally referred to as copy blocks. Yes, like this, on e-commerce pages. So the way that Walmart did it, when you kind of hide this content in a show more, Google is going to ignore this this content, in that they're going to be like, okay, well, if you don't even want to show it, then why should I show it? So I think that that's something to keep in mind. The next part is that, yes, you can see Walmart's doing it. You can kind of see that Home Depot is doing it. I kind of like the Home Depot way of doing it more, right? It's at the footer, it's clearly visible, it's not being hidden, and it's done in a way that's actually trying to be useful to the category that you're writing about. It is then indeed a great way to put a lot of the entities that Clearscope is recommending that your piece of content could be, or piece of content, that your category page could be missing within the context. So I would recommend this. Don't fold it under a show more, and then try to make it like actually useful and relevant, rather than, like, what is a good vacuum for everyday use or whatever. It's yeah, it's like that. Cool. All right, dropping a poll. Topic gap analysis is brilliant. Okay. Yes, so I know we're a little bit over, but any concluding questions, thoughts while we're here? It is my pleasure. Okay. Oh, cool. Well, we'll call that a wrap. And then, the plan is to do these every Tuesday of the month or of months moving forward. So stay tuned. There's a lot of stuff coming. Also appreciate everyone's willingness to participate in the poll because that gives us, more data and more satisfied and happy customers moving forward. Now, before we wrap this up, don't forget to share, like, and subscribe so you don't miss out on more great content from the industry's best SEOs, content marketers, and content strategists. The Clearscope webinar series happens every week and helps SEO content creators of all skill levels advance their knowledge. Hope to see you. Tune in next time.